The media took a far less belligerent tone when covering a suicide car bomb attack on mostly Shia pro-government townspeople west of Aleppo. As well as a tragedy, CNN went as far as describing this, the killing of over 150 people, mainly civilians, as a hiccup.
The evacuation process is continuing despite this, you would say, hiccup but disastrous moment.
Instead of actually directly pointing the finger at extremist elements among the rebels, the main culprit was instead, it seems, the war itself.
Dozens of supporters of President Bashar al-Assad are the latest victims of Syria's brutal civil war.
Both sides have been stuck in a no-man's land with a conflict of emotions.
The BBC went one step further by suggesting that this was perhaps the work of the Syrian government. According to the Beeb, there's no evidence that the rebels were involved in the attack. It's unclear how the vehicle filled with explosives got into rebel territory near Aleppo without government permission. The bombing would not be in the rebels' interest, apparently. If that's the case, then why did rebels film this video after they burned government buses sent to evacuate people from the exact same towns a few months ago?
الباصات التي أتت لنقل الروافد تم حرقها بفضل الله تعالى. الله أكبر. وسنحرق كل من سيأتي لنقل هؤلاء. الله أكبر. بدك تنقلوا الشيعة يا خنازير ما؟ بإذن الله ما بيطلعوا غير جثث هامدي.
The BBC features that same video on their website, although the audio is conveniently missing. This latest bombing killed at least 68 children. The suicide bombers reportedly lured the hungry youngsters in with snacks before setting off the blast. While the regime and its allies are certainly guilty of waging a brutal air campaign, does this kind of suicide attack sound like the work of the government? It doesn't take an expert to know that the rebels are not a single entity, but are instead made up of many groups, each with different goals, including Sunni extremists for whom the massacring of predominantly Shia townspeople is indeed of interest. But none of that information really goes with the whole binary mainstream narrative the media is spinning, so why would they think to mention it?
Well, we discussed the Western media's coverage of the Syria conflict with a number of experts. They believe the reporting is a clear case of double standards.
I mean, the Western media is very, very hostile towards Iran as well as towards Russia. And so whenever the civilians are killed, and it could be linked to Assad or Russia, Syria or Russia, or by extension, Assad, it's a huge news story. However, the Western media has been trying to whitewash the crimes of the Syrian opposition. And so this kind of an attack is inconsistent with the narrative, because what it strongly implies is that important segments of the opposition are sectarian maniacs. And that's not the pro-regime change position that the Western media has been selling.
It definitely comes under the criteria of double standards. I mean, you've seen numerous different scenarios and events in Syria where you've had massacres which have taken place, either committed by rebels or rebel sympathizers, and they just haven't been given the justice they deserve in the Western press or the mainstream media. So what it does show is that for Western governments, and especially the Western media, there are worthy victims of which suit their own political agenda, and there are unworthy victims of who don't suit their political agenda.